Hi, everyone, and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. Today, I'm going to be here talking with Brittany Brave about what it means to be brave. And I'm super excited for this edition because right now, more than ever, I think we need to be brave. And here she is now. And so I'm going to bring her on. Just give me 1 second. Here she comes. Hey,
Hi, how are you?
good. How are you?
All my
Oh, I
calls
lost.
and everything outside. I'm taking advantage of being in Miami in warm climates. So
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're in fresh air. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I'm super excited to have this conversation about, being brave and um, and I'm sure inspiring others to take some leaps of faith where needed, especially right now when I think it can be harder than ever to take decisions that feel like there's a lot of risk associated with it.
yeah, to take any
Um,
step forward now feels extra uncertain and big. Yeah.
yeah. So before we like totally dive in, I just would love for you to share a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to share about like your life, your background, um, and why being brave is something that you're passionate about talking about today.
Yes. Okay. Tosca, that's such a risky thing to tell a comedian to just go ahead and just share whatever you want. I'll be like, all right, let me launch right into my act. But yeah, I'm a comedian and an actress. I'm from New York and also from Miami. I'm currently in Miami, but also spending my time in New York. As someone who's a comedian, I've always loved comedy. Comedy was my very first love. I was a ham growing up. I think ham is a term that people use for people who are pains in the ass, who constantly need attention. That's a nice way of putting it. We call them a ham. But I had a couple different career paths in my life and ultimately wasn't doing comedy and wasn't doing what it was that I really felt seen in. So about 2 to 3 years, I much like I know you can relate, cast the net to the side, and just totally went for it and decided to pursue comedy and basically uproot my entire life. And here I am on the other side of it doing it. So
You're
far so
doing
good.
it. Yes, yes. Yeah, and I'm curious, actually, like, did it feel brave to you when you did make that switch?
Um, yeah, it did, but not in the moment, I'll say. Not in the moment. In the moment it felt necessary. It felt a lot of things. It felt necessary and it felt
Mm.
cathartic. It felt right as well too. Like I don't think I ever had any doubt that this is the choice that I need to be making. Is like that. Like the short-term steps um sometimes aren't always clear, but as long as you have faith in the long term goal. Like I always knew where I would end up as
Mm.
a comedian. I was like, I will be fine, and this is what I should be doing. But the short term was a little bit unclear, so I just kind of had to move past that. Yeah, in the moment, I didn't feel brave. It just felt like it's what I needed to do, and I think now I see whatever courage or bravery was in it. Yeah.
And I thank you for sharing that because I think that, you know, when people do make those hard choices, right, about saying I'm going to walk away from this and I'm going to move into that, whatever it is, be it career or be it just life path, be it I'm going to choose to have a baby or a puppy or whatever, and then in the
Mm-hmm.
moment it doesn't necessarily give you all the bliss that maybe like, or like you still have some dissonance after you make those choices.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's important for people to hear that and know, like, you're probably not alone with whatever you're experiencing, and maybe you just made a choice, or maybe you're going to make a choice, but just know that it may not feel the fuzz, all the fuzzies may not come right away, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that a lot of like mainstream media and these movies and books and articles and stuff romanticize these life choices too. And I think that we think when we make
Mm.
them, they're going to feel like cue dramatic music, cue big scenery. Oh, this is my moment. I was ready to go. I got out of bed. I flew into my new career. And that's just like not the case. That's just like not real life. So yeah, I think it is important to remember that like it might be kind of anticlimactic, or you might not feel super brave and strong in the moment, but like you will look back on the big picture and be like, oh, that was pretty damn badass of me to have done that. I didn't know it at the time, but I see it
Right.
now. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I love that. Yes, owning all your badassery and seeing it for what it is. It's great. Um, and so, of course, we're talking about being brave today, and your last name is Brave. So, is that your real name? Like, I'm sure everybody just wants to know, like, is that your stage name? Like,
It's
what
all
is that?
real, Tosca. It's all real. Okay, the last name is real. Everything's real. The boobs are real. Well, I'm real, okay? The comedy's real. Everything that gets talked about on stage, it's true, baby. Okay, I can't help it. But no, yeah, it is. It is my last name. I have been asked that a bazillion times. Again, it's so funny because it's like it's just things that I don't notice about myself because it's just like my name. And then some people are like, that's so wild. And I'm like, is it? I guess it is. Then I met somebody the other day whose last name was Fondue, and I was like, I was like, is that your real last name? And then I was like, oh shit, this must be how it feels to be on the other side of this. I totally get it
I
now.
I know, and I have I had to ask that question because like here we are talking about being brave, so it's kind of a little bit about being you and a little bit about like how you live in this world. I really see like, and I just have to say I feel like I didn't get into my gushy I love you like speech earlier, but obviously everybody who's on now and who knows you and sees you like and your energy and your enthusiasm, and you just really put yourself out there, and of course as a comedian, right, that comes with the territory. So we talked about you being brave and making career shift, but also I think like every minute that you get on stage is an act of bravery. um, I think because in comedy, I see comedy as vulnerability because you're speaking truths. You're just speaking it in a way that's a whole nother like way into that, like so I'm curious your perspective on, being able to use your voice and in the way that you do you see that as brave?
Um, yeah, yes, I do. Won't parts of that would otherwise be hidden is it's inherently brave. I think when you become a
Mm.
comedian or you become some sort of like public figure, you don't. It's just kind of like necessary to your core to do it. So it's always very funny to me when people, and I get it, but when people are like, "It's so brave of you to be a comedian," or "It's so brave of you to get on stage," like I think of so many other things that are like very very
Mm.
brave that I'm like I'm a really bad swimmer. Like I think people who swim in the ocean are brave. Like that's like I think bravery, like
Mm.
that's why like we're all here. It's not to get too like cheesy, but like everyone is like to perform, but I think when you are a comedian or you're called to do this, it goes beyond bravery, and it's just like this is just what I need to do. Like this is what I
Mm.
want to do. This is what I need to do, and I feel compelled to do. Like I think like so many like I think
Mm.
yeah, people like CEOs of companies are brave. Like I think like you know what I mean? I think doctors are brave. Like that's all stuff that I don't have the capacity to do,
Mm.
but like I admire it and I see bravery because it's a risk I would never be able to take. If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And you were cutting out just a little bit in the beginning. I don't know if like our connection is a little funky,
My
uh
parents got to
but
up
yeah,
their
but what I
Wi-Fi
kind of
game. Sorry, but they got to up their
yeah,
Wi-Fi
we
game.
gotta
My
get
mom and
there. We
dad.
gotta get
They
there.
have they have a millennial now streaming and live streaming and zooming and blooming, and they really really need to up their game here. I just shut the Wi-Fi off on my laptop. Maybe that'll help a little bit.
I have an idea. Why don't we do a GoFundMe account for, comedians who need better Wi-Fi?
Yes. Yes, as long as you put in the fine print that the funds may or may not also be used for an occasional manicure, glass of wine, and to help pay our rent. As long as you put it in the fine print that we will be using the funds at our own discretion, then yes, absolutely, I'm down for that. Yeah.
Let's do it. I'll put it on my to-do list. But yeah, what I was
Yes.
going to say there was that it's just like bravery is so unique for every person, right? Because it's like it's to me, it's just about where is your comfort zone, and then the
Right.
bravery to me is like stepping in that next rung of comfort, right? Which is like you know, and what it looks like for you, what it looks like for somebody else. But I
Mm-hmm.
think also you know, I know you're passionate about like topics around women, and so am I, you know, and I think one of the things that women tend not to do is give themselves credit for their bravery. They just kind of are like, yeah, yeah, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
and we forget how brave we are, and we need to remember for those moments that we have to really make that next hard choice,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I completely agree. I see it with my girlfriends. I see it with myself too. Sometimes I struggle taking a compliment or a lot of if it weren't for my like support system too, I think a lot of wins that I've had in my life, I probably wouldn't have like soaked in or celebrated as much. And it's like, and you too, like you've helped, working with you pointed things out to me as well. And like, and been, and I think it's important to have people around you that gas you up, and other women specifically that can help point out what you've done right and the steps of bravery, because yeah, it's we are conditioned to just kind of gloss over it as women sometimes and just and it's good to always have that reminder of somebody that's like, no, like own thy shit, own the good stuff
yeah.
and the bad stuff, like yeah.
Totally. It's kind of like we will sit there and we will commiserate about something for like 3 hours, but then we don't ask each other, so what do you want to celebrate today? You know, it's a very coaching thing to be like, so what do you want to celebrate? But and people are just like, wait, what? I don't need to celebrate. Yes, you do, girl. Yes,
It's
you do.
it's you absolutely do. And it's like, and it's also often gets like, somebody had told me one time, they were like, you're very good at self promotion. Someone had given me that, and I was like,
Mm,
I don't know how else to be in the field that I'm in without like
mm,
putting out when I'm going to be out and about and speaking and doing what it is that I do. And as long as I'm doing things that I'm comfortable promoting, if I don't want to promote it, then that's probably my intuition telling me that there's something
mm.
amiss about this opportunity, or there's something here that like isn't aligned with who it is that I really am. But like I think women get that too. They were like, oh, you're just like so good at self promotion. And I'm like, well, someone's gotta be. Like, like someone's got to promote me, and I can't
Yeah.
wait around for somebody else to do it. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that, especially because like whether you're in the corporate world and you're working, whether you got your side hustle, whether you have your own business, I think that this is one of those things where like, you know, you're the only one that cares. No one cares more about you than you do, right?
Correct.
So if you're not the one telling the narrative, telling the story, then somebody else is doing it for you. And you know, especially in the corporate world, which you come from, right? It's like people are having conversations about you behind your back, but you need to tell them the story that is yours, not like the telephone game. You know, three people were like, you know, translating your superpowers. You know,
Yeah, no,
um,
absolutely owning it. Yeah, I mean, if it's to your point, you're 100% right. Like the story's going to be told and you're going to be talked about, so you might as well be the lead writer in it and like control the
right?
narrative. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So has there ever been, I mean, you talked a little bit about if I love that you use your gut to say, hey, if I'm not cool with like self-promoting, that means maybe this isn't something I should be doing.
Hmm.
And I also just want to, you know, mention, I think people also feel that way, right, about bragging in whatever, right, environment that they're in, whether
Yep.
that's in their jobs or whatever. And it feels uncomfortable because we're not used to it.
Hmm.
You know, so I think the way you talked about it is, well, it must not be aligned with what I really want to do. And also, there could be times where it's just so uncomfortable to promote, either because maybe you're stepping into something brave for yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then it feels uncomfortable. So I don't know if that also plays a role.
That Absolutely does. Yeah, absolutely. It's I think that if you're not comfortable promoting it, I think I personally go with my gut that it's either like if I'm usually comfortable promoting the things that I'm doing and if for some reason I'm not, then yes, it is like a good red flag or signal to check in like if and that's how I approach my career too is it's like I'm not going to take any opportunity, I'm not going to say anything on stage, and I'm not going to put myself out there in any kind of way that I don't want to promote afterwards because then I shouldn't fundamentally be doing it. It's not coming from a place of authenticity. But to your point, which is I think a trend with women, I think if you're not doing it enough already, there's a fine line between is my gut telling me it's wrong or is it just I'm stepping into territory that I'm just less familiar with, and will this feel better the more I do it and the more I acclimate to it, right?
Oh
Like,
yes. Oh my
yeah.
God. Like I just had a conversation, so synchronistic because I just had a conversation with a friend of mine today who was questioning something that she felt like her gut. And it was like, yeah, is it your gut or is it fear? Like, is it, oh, talk about it.
Woo!
Talk about it.
No, you go. No, I cut you off. I would love to hear your take on this. I love.
Well, what's coming up for you? I'm curious, like what resonates with that.
I think I think your gut is here to protect you, and I think fear is here to protect you. And I think
Mm.
that's if there was a Venn diagram, I think that that's the middle sliver, right? Like it's self protection and self defense, and that, like, your gut's trying to tell you what turn to make if you're like steering in the woods. I don't know why you'd be steering yourself in the woods, but whatever. That's a very, very crazy Huckleberry Finn metaphor. I don't know what the hell they go. We're gonna go with it. It's early. Any more coffee? But it's your gut's trying to tell you like which direction to go in, and it has the best intentions for you in that sense. But I think fear does too, right? Because it's all self protection at the end of the day. But I personally struggle with that. I struggle with that in interpersonal relationships. I struggle with that with my career. Just
Mm.
going like, okay, is it my gut or is it coming from a place of fear?
Mm.
And just trying to decipher between the two. And usually I feel like as if it's fear if you're trying to predicate or predict the outcome. That's what I think. Like
Mm.
your gut's very present and it'll tell you immediately if something's amiss or if something's good. I think it becomes fear getting in the way when you find yourself assuming and predicting the next
Mm.
steps. You're like,
Mm.
oh, this is beyond the present. I'm just already imagining all the ways this can go wrong. That's a place of fear, I think.
Mm.
I
I
don't
love
know.
that. I love
Yeah.
that analysis of it of what it feels like for you. And I think that's a great question for people to ask themselves, which is like, how does fear show up for you? Like, what is it you do when it's fear versus what is like your gut voice feel like in your body? Because our bodies have so much information, and we often disregard that or don't pay attention to that
Mm-hmm.
in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. So I'm curious when you get actually this feels like a Brene Brown does these like quick fire questions in her
Mm-hmm.
podcast, and this is kind of like along the same line of that, which is like when you are getting choked up and when you have this like this gut that's telling you you got to just do this even though there is some fear in there. What do you do personally to get you over the hump to say, I'm just gonna fucking do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like what does that look like for you, that process?
A shot of tequila. Just kidding.
I
That's
love
what's in here right now. No, I'm kidding. That's why my metaphor was like steering in the woods. Comedian with a drinking problem, of course. No, I'm kidding. Kidding. I do. What do I do in that moment? I think I do. I try to do two things. One of two things, or hopefully a combination of two things. I have found one, I try to remind myself of all the other times in my life when I didn't want to do something and it always ended up being worth it. Or
Mm,
any kind of challenge from small to
mm,
like this one thing I thought would have been embarrassing or I thought was going to go awry, and it actually turned out to pleasantly surprise me and was a great
mm,
opportunity. Or big things like, oh, Brittany, like you did like, close down your business and uproot your entire life and career, and that's going pretty well, and like stuff like that. There's a comment. I'm curious about the comment in the section. I'll get that to in a second. But it's so I do that. I always try to remind myself that like whatever it is or however this is going to go, you will navigate it as you have before. And on a tactical level, slowing down. like I've
Mm.
always like I feel like I rush. I've always had a tendency to do things in haste, and sometimes it comes from nerves, sometimes it comes from excitement. But like as I've gotten older, I'm like taking a beat is so big. So when I'm like facing something that's intimidating me or might be fear ridden, sometimes it just really does help to like just take a second and really process it and really try to figure out like what is it that I'm so afraid of and what's like the worst case scenario here, which you might not ask yourself those questions if you're just like 2 feet in, 2 feet out and rushing through something, you know? So that's for me what I've been doing. Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna hang up my hat as a coach because I just feel like you just, like Brittany Brave, actress, comedian, coach, host, writer, producer. That's like so amazing. I love all of that sage counsel that works for you, and I feel like you have a few tools in your toolbox, and I can imagine like, that's important, especially as you every time you go on stage, right? It's like a different audience, it's like a different vibe that you just never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And trusting, like, I find a lot of my fear with going on stage too is when I've like pre planned a little bit too much,
uh,
or I put myself in a weird
mm,
mindset right before going on, like this isn't going to go well, or this crowd looks rough, or like, oh, you haven't done enough open mics today. Like, oh, you're going to bomb, Brittany. You're going to like, and all of this stuff. And then sometimes it's like what I've been challenging myself as a performer to do is go on stage and be like, just be present and navigate it moment to moment. You've got this kind of thing. Like,
mm.
don't overplan. Don't assume how the audience is going to react. Just get up there and you're going to figure it out. You'll just take it one foot in front of the other. You'll figure it out, and just kind of going back and like, you're funny. What's the worst that can happen? Take it a step at a time. And yeah, like so I feel like, to your point, like you're right, crowds change, life changes. Like whatever life was 30 seconds ago, it isn't right now. So in stand up it's like that too. Whatever the crowd was a minute ago, they're not that way right now. So it's always just like course correcting. So
Yeah, I love that because what you're kind of saying, so much of what you're saying is about being in the moment and of realizing that you couldn't possibly know what the outcome is going to be. And so if you just stay centered in yourself, that's the best that you can ever do
yeah,
is to be aligned and centered in who you are and being true to that. And then like that's where the magic will unfold because you're not attached to the outcome of what happens if you are that person. Well, we already know what happens when you're that person is freaking magic. I mean, and that goes for I think that goes for everybody. Everybody's watching this now and later. It's like, yeah, where are you? What a great question. Like, where are you over planning, over preparing?
yeah,
Uh, and where are you attached to outcomes because you want it so bad. And
yeah.
it's okay to want and also know that what's meant for you will come to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that yeah, we put so much on external factors and we forget our own like internal power and ability. And it's like, yes, so many things can go wrong. Like in a stand up example, it's like, yes, somebody could be drunk in the crowd or a mic could cut out or nowadays pandemic comedy, I could get rained on halfway through my set. Like God only knows like all of the things that can go wrong. But it's like, if I put so much of the emphasis on external factors, then I'm definitely not putting enough emphasis on like the internal, which isn't fair to me. Like no matter what else
Right.
goes on, my ability is still my ability to be funny or my ability to handle a situation in the present is still there and I'm still capable of it. So I guess it's like trying to mirror that in life too. Like, yes, anything could go awry at any moment. But like, hey, you're still a part of the equation. You're still here. You still know how to problem
And
solve and get through shit. Yeah. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I know you got some fan action here. I love it. Oh, OMG. I'm probably not saying that right.
Hi
Yeah, it's
everyone.
yeah, it's like it's funny because what this I think it's she saying watching this live is literal confirmation to keep going, and what comes up for me when I see that is like that is the universe giving you the message that you need in that moment, and are you paying attention? And I think you're paying attention, um, because when we're being brave and we're taking risks and we're choosing things that are outside our comfort zone, we may not even realize when we're getting that message from
Mm-hmm.
something greater than ourselves that we're on our path and we're doing the things that we're meant to do here on this earth, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. And even if it's like
and
the step forward is sloppy, or even if the step forward indicates failure on some level, or it doesn't go the way you had hoped, or what, whatever your target goal is, it's still a step forward. You can't take that away. It's still one step forward. So that's how it's like, that's how I even approached doing comedy. Is I was like, even if this fails or this doesn't work out or I don't go wherever I think I'm dreaming I want to go, it's still not stagnancy. It's still a step forward
right.
in one way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. I'm taking you on a road show because I feel like everybody needs to hear this message. Like, no, because I mean, as a career coach, right, as one of the things that I do, yeah, it can be really hard to like see those doors that are closing as like something personal, right? Versus
Yeah.
as saying the universe is saying that those aren't meant for you. You just can't see it yet. But part of that is being attached to outcomes, which kind of brings me to like this whole, there's a reason why I'm not an actress. I mean, I went to high school as a drama major, but
Did you
but
really?
it's like I did. I
Oh
did.
my God. I knew she had some star power. I knew it. I saw it.
No, but I think honestly, like the idea of rejection, right? Or the idea of wanting something and then not being able to get it. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, your experience of you really wanted something. I'm sure you do auditions and there's various things, right? And like you probably let yourself get excited. I'm assuming, like tell me if I'm wrong, but I
Hmm.
think this is normal. You get excited about an opportunity and maybe it doesn't pan out. And how do you handle that roller coaster ride? Because it's a very similar, I think, roller coaster ride to job searching. You're just doing it on a project basis, right? It's just so it's all the time versus like maybe once a year or maybe every 3 years or maybe every 10 years you're looking for a new job. So what do you do to let yourself be excited and let things come to you that are meant to you, but also not beat yourself up for those things that don't happen that you thought were on your path?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think when you said like it happens more frequently, I think sometimes in like the entertainment industry, whereas like, if you're searching for a job, it's on a little bit more of a longer timeline, whereas we're always auditioning, we're always getting on stage. So that rejection, it's just like at bats, right? It's just like a
Right.
numbers game at that point. So a little bit of that is like exposure theory, like kind of we were saying earlier, like the bravery is in like doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And if you continue to do it long enough, or the more often you do it, you're going to get comfortable in that discomfort, or it's not going to feel that uncomfortable anymore. So this feeling is now
Mm.
going to actually be second nature to you. And maybe that's what just held you back the entire time.
Mm.
So it is a little bit of it is like, it is a numbers game where it's like, just continue to get on stage. And if you're getting
Mm.
on stage as much as possible, or you're auditioning as much as possible, and you don't get something, or you completely bomb and fall on your face, it's okay, because it's like coming from an abundance perspective. Like you're able to be like, this is not the last time I'll get on stage. This is not the last audition
Mm.
that I will have. I've got 10 more shows this week. I've got 2 more lined up this week. So I always try to, I've also tried to separate. I really try to approach it with logic, and it's hard. And I try to remove emotion from it. Like if I have a very, very
Mm.
good set, feel good about it for a limited amount of time. Like if I have a very, very bad set, process it, feel what I need to feel about it for a limited amount of time. So just kind of like
Mm.
reacting to all of these opportunities and all of these things in moderation. And that like at the
Mm.
end of the day, it's not about how any one of these things is. Like it's about continuing to work, continuing to put myself out there, and continuing to create. It's hard. It's really hard. And because it's like such a fine line between excitement and investment too with these things,
Mm.
because you want something so bad and you're so excited for it to pan out, but then before you know it, you're now invested in it too much, and then now
Mm.
it's like however it's going to go is going to really, really affect you. So I think that's why I try to stay so busy, or I try to always be working and performing or doing something, so that there's always something on the other end. No matter, so I don't tie myself to one thing. I have
Mm.
weeks where stand up's going well, but auditions I'm bombing. I have weeks where I am oh my God, falling on my ass on stage and I don't know what's going on and I'm in a funk, but I can be like, but I did, I auditioned for that web series and I got it. So that's great. Like, and just trying to always be in a rhythm, I guess. So no one thing will speed me up or slow me down too much. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, oh my God, you just shared so much that I'm just like, I want to talk about all these things. And there's like the coaching mindset of me is like going in this whole other direction. Um, but I think that what you said actually, one of the things you talked about, right, which is doing things doing uncomfortable things more frequently will help you to feel more comfortable in doing uncomfortable things.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of even a yoga practice, right? There's that practice of, okay, you cross your legs, right? And then it says,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now cross your legs in the uncomfortable way, in the way that's not the natural way. And
Mm-hmm.
that just mirrors like this idea of life of, okay, every so often, or maybe more frequently, depending on what your situation is, like do things that are uncomfortable because then we get more used to doing things that don't feel exactly right or exactly what we're used to. And I feel like we're in this moment in time where we're all doing things that are uncomfortable
Yeah.
or that right and it feels even worse because it's a lot at once or it's more
Mm-hmm.
extreme.
Mm-hmm.
um so I'm wondering, even for you, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, I just think about, comedy and live audience is such a big part of that. So, like, what has been most uncomfortable for you in terms of this time that we're in with COVID and the limitations and all that? And how are you pushing through that discomfort?
Yeah. I think the most uncomfortable thing has been like grappling with my own anxiety about it.
Mm,
Or also to hearing everyone in my industry up and down talking about comedy's dead and live entertainment's dead and all these things are dead and they're never going to come back and they're never going to be the same. And then like so it's not letting my own anxiety impede my creative process,
mm,
if you will, or like stop me from doing anything, and just trying to have the perspective that everything is only just like a moment in time.
mm,
And I know this sucks, and this sucks so badly for Broadway, and it sucks so badly for all of us like entertainers, but like you're never going to like completely eradicate an entire medium. Like there is still someone somewhere who's doing dial-up internet on AOL. Like, and it's my mother, and she's here right now. And, and like so you can't, like, it's never going to be that like black and white, up and down, door open, door shut. Like it's just
mm,
1 minute, and it's just like about adapting and making the most of what that individual moment is. And
mm,
something I wanted to mention like earlier about like the whole like getting comfortable being uncomfortable thing, I got that from improv. Like
mm,
Amy Poehler, actually, like who I love, like comedy goddess, like one of my, biggest muses and idols. But like I credit a lot of how I approach life with how I approach the stage, and I
mm,
credit a lot of how I approach the stage and comedy with like improv. Like I really, really, like
mm,
I can't encourage that enough to people. Like I think everybody should take an improv class at some point in their life. Like whether they continue to practice it, do it seriously, take comedy seriously or not. Like it just, for me, it from an early age when I did it, it's just stepping out with absolutely no script. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't predict what somebody else is going to say. So you just learn to like, I got this to yourself. I got it. Like, and then you start to realize like, well, that's life, isn't it? Right? Like, I don't know what the next second's going to have. I have conversations with people all the time. I don't know what they're going to say. If I did, I'd be a sociopath. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I really do like credit it to that. But
mm,
yeah, this time was, I don't know if I ever fully had the panic that comedy was going away. And I get why
mm.
people did. And it was a little scary and unsettling for a moment. But I was like, let's not totally catastrophize this, if that makes sense. And it's a pretty bad year. It's a pretty uprooting year. And nobody can like take that away. But I was like, okay, guys, comedy itself will go on. Like it will go
Yes.
on. It might take new shape. That might be uncomfortable, but it'll be okay. It'll
I
be, yeah.
I'm feeling like a Titanic song right now. Near, far. Anyway, but yeah. No, but 100%. But I think the same that catastrophizing, also like the scarcity mindset, the fear mindset, right? Like again, even in the environment of like people that are furloughed or losing their jobs, and then you can easily say to yourself, nothing's out there. And that's not true. Like,
Hmm.
and I hear like, and that's one way to fight those inner critics or those external messages, which is like, is that you don't even know what's possible. How could you
Yeah.
sit here and tell me what the future is going to be? Because we don't even know. Even if we think we know, we don't. So
My dad
how
gave
do
me a
we?
piece of advice years ago, and he's like, "You don't know what you don't know," and it's
Right.
the biggest mind fuck, but it's like the truest thing I've ever. He's like, "You don't know what you don't know." That's the most neutral piece of advice I can give you, and I was like, "Oh my god, he's right." Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that sits so well with me too, because in the realm of like even coaching and consulting, right? It's like helping people to understand there's this whole world,
hmm,
I mean, even if we think of issues around, not to like, go deep here, but that's what I do
hmm,
on Talk About It Tuesday. But even if you talk about the racism in America, right? And there's so many people here that don't know what they don't know, and so they're saying things, and it's like, yeah, like we have to ask ourselves, like, what are the realms that we know we don't know,
yep,
and then who can help us see what we don't know.
hmm,
It's a big, because and I think that is an act of bravery, of being willing to ask those questions and say to other people, hey, like, I realized I just stepped on a landmine, I had no idea.
yeah,
And how do we be brave to get out of um, our own fear of saying or doing the wrong thing for the sake of our own personal growth and for the sake of
saving
broader.
face or not being
Yeah,
embarrassed or whatever. Yeah,
right, right. And I can imagine even in the heat of the moment when you're doing your magic, like, things probably don't always come out the way you want it to come out, and then what?
yeah. You try, you human error, right? Like human error, live entertainment, live comedy. It happens all the time, and it's yeah. I
Mm,
think it's like as long as there's good meaning and good intention behind it. I think you can tell when like, somebody's truly it's coming from a place of humility and they really truly don't understand and they're trying. And then
mm,
I can think you also know when it's like hate speech and we want to hurt feelings and we're actually like
right.
chopping up our words very intentionally in that sense. But yeah, I think that's where like curiosity and humility are like great qualities, like and when ignorance and racism and these things get dangerous is when we're not even willing to have those conversations, or we look out for our ego, like we're afraid to admit we don't know something, we're afraid to admit we're bad at something, we're afraid to say like I fucked up, and even
Mm,
interpersonally to people and say I'm sorry, I didn't handle that well, you're right, I could have tried harder, I did lie, I did do,
mm,
and you choose your ego in that moment when you're like I'm not going to admit this because it's going to make me look bad and I don't want to feel that feeling and I don't want to sit in that. When I think just I'm always really big on like anybody in my life who can apologize. I never kick a dead horse. I never kick an apologizing horse. Like,
mm,
I'm not saying I'll forget. I'm not saying my perspective won't change. But if you're big enough to say, I didn't know and I'm so sorry, and I've taken a second to look at my actions and you're owed an apology, that's such a big thing when someone's able to
mm.
do that, that I always accept every apology. I really do.
Well, and that's, and that is truly living from your higher self, right? Being able to get to that point. A lot of people have really struggled with forgiveness and acceptance and holding space and being okay with people making mistakes and not taking it personally. And this conversation really makes me think of
I'm
how
sending
your
kissies to my girls. Hi, Karen. Hi, Kim.
yeah.
Woo! Very funny ladies. Did sketch comedy with both of them. Follow those ladies. They're very funny.
Nice, will do, will do. Yeah, and it makes me think of, right, what you were saying, because you had a background in public relations,
Yeah.
right, which is positioning and and right, and
Mhm.
you're talking about, I think, the crux of, I think, what you're talking about too is authenticity and intention, and so I'm curious, like, how that previous career has either helped or hindered you as you've entered the space of like of entertainer and actress and everything else.
Yeah. I struggle a lot with trying to tell myself that I didn't waste time when I was in PR or corporate. It's something I still struggle with every single day. Like I turn on America's Got Talent and I watch some 13-year-old killing it with jokes about banana peels and Xbox. And I'm like, that could have been me. I was telling those jokes at 13, but I was too busy being class president or something. I was doing some other bullshit. So I do, admittedly, like I constantly struggle with like wasted time or like misstep or something, but I have come to embrace it. The number one way that I embrace it is that I spent so many years doing something that fundamentally wasn't what I wanted to do, and that didn't bring me joy and caused a lot of imposter syndrome and existential crises. Fun time. That it's made me hungrier now, I think, as a comedian. Now that I'm finally doing what it is that I want to do, I don't waste a second. And I charge forward, and I'm never going to take it for granted ever again. I'm going to get on stage as much as I can. Also, too, I mean, on a tactical level, Tosca, like I feel like I made so many like mistakes just from being like in my early 20s, socially and professionally or whatever, that like it's nice to now on my second lap around with the thing I actually care about be like, aha, I know how to handle, I know how to handle this, or I know what not to do here or something. So that, and yeah, I think every artist and every creative needs to balance the creativity part of it. And then it's also really important to have your shit together on a business sense too. And I think a lot of people don't take off because they don't have the logistics together or they don't lean into the creativity enough. So yeah, it is really nice to be able to have this tool belt of like knowing how to promote my own stuff and build my own brand. And like a lot of these things are intuitive to me now. Then I don't need to be taught them. So yes, I mean, those roads did lead to good things, but yeah, it all was. And also I feel like I didn't have anything to talk about when I did corporate PR. Those jokes would have been so boring. I don't know. They just would have like, I hadn't really lived yet. I was like, surrendering my life to a big corporation. Like I hadn't really like gotten out there and had the texture of life yet, if you will. Italian, here we go. So yeah. Yeah, it all led me to where I am now. I don't think of it as wasted time as much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love your honesty in that, and I love that because we can often hold all that stuff, right? It's like there's a part of me that's like, did I waste time? And then there's a part of me that's like glad I had that, and like I love the truth of that because I think oftentimes what people hear is is the is the rosy side of that, which is, oh, I'm so glad because it's helped me to know how to market myself and da 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 da. And you don't talk about, right? But I think what's so real is like, I think especially, and I can resonate with like time pressure feelings, right? Is we can also tell ourselves these other stories that actually don't serve us, but
Right.
are part of our what we really feel, and how do we just honor that and hold that, and I'm sure, and I think also with distance, you see things so much differently with distance, and it's like, oh shit, I kind of had to go through that in order to get to this, and as you were telling your story, what I hear is like, because you denied your fire, what lit you up for a number of years, now all you do is embrace it. I feel like that was in service
hmm
of knowing how much you value it. I don't know. It's beautiful. It's, even though it comes with some hard things, it's also beautiful to know, like, it's like you don't want to take it for granted, is kind of what I'm hearing now.
No, yeah, and it's so like dating, like anything else. It's like that process of elimination. Like it's like knowing now that you know what you don't want, you will know what it is that you do want.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so much pent up like frustration, and it was so painful too, having like really spent the better part of my life performing, doing
Mhm.
improv, acting, and everything. Absolutely shutting that out of my life for the most part for so many years, and then telling people and telling coworkers like I do comedy, and then being like, "Oh, you do?" And oh yeah, I guess it. Like, you're funny. You keep cracking dick jokes in the conference room. Okay, well, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, like, and it's like, but it was like heartbreaking. It's like, this is so fundamental to who I am.
Mm.
How is this not showing up in my life anywhere? How is
Ooh.
this not like worn on me? So I think that's why, starting with comedy and now with everything else, if it is a part of who I am, it's very loud and proud on me. Like, I'm a domestic violence survivor. I'll talk with anybody about it. You know what I mean? I will talk with anybody about reproductive rights for women. I will talk with anybody. My Italian culture. I fucking love being Italian. I think it's a huge part of my sense of here. We're paisans. We're family. So I think that was the first step in, like, if it's a part of me, I can't change it. So I might as well live with it, accept it, dare I say it, love it, and like put it out there, right? Like, yeah.
I'm like, if
So,
anybody's here, please listen to that statement, which is like, again, actress slash coach slash comedian. What you're saying is so powerful, and I want to slow down on that because what you're saying is, and I talk about this, which is
mhm,
when you can embrace and love and honor those parts of yourself that you hide.
mhm,
Like those are the parts of yourself that are your uniqueness, that are your superpowers, that's your gold.
mhm,
And yeah, I might have to like package this and put it out there in this little snippet because I think a lot of people um, we want to hide those things and we shame those parts of ourselves that we don't like versus say, fuck it, like this is who I am. I'm gonna love all of me, which can be bold, unfortunately,
mhm,
because we're not trained to love all of our parts. We're
mhm. And
we're we're tr-
you can't love anything in private either. I mean, you
yeah.
can. You know what I mean? But, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, love is not the kind of emotion. It's the strongest emotion in the world, and it's like, when you conceal it, you do take away from its
Mm,
value. So it's like
mm,
that. It is a part of self-love by being able to put these things out there. It's owning them, and it's owning them,
mm,
and taking a pride and a possession in them. And it started when I survived. I was a domestic violence survivor. I was in a super abusive relationship for 3 years. I had people say, I can't believe you talk about that on stage. I had a podcast about it. I talk to everybody about it. I'm very open about it because I quickly figured out that I can't change that this has now become a
mm,
part of my narrative. You can't change the truth. So figure out what you're going to do with it, right? What are your options? You're going to bury it. You're going to let it eat you away. Or you're going to own it, like you said, and make it a really unique individual part of your story. So if I can't change that this happened to me, and it did, then I might as well, like, come on in. There's room for this part of my story at the table. Like, this is my journey. This is what happened. So, yeah.
wow. Yeah. And what changed for you when when you did start to embrace all these parts of your experiences and maybe it's a hard question to ask because it's not like I'm expecting an aha moment, like,
Mm-hmm.
the angels came and said, you're doing, that's what you're supposed, yeah. But like, yeah, I'm just wondering if you can remember any of what that was like for you to say, fuck it.
Yeah, I think I spent so many years in weird denial of a lot of things, in denial of what it was I should be doing with my life, in denial of how much I was actually doing comedy. I was not doing comedy. I was doing a 9 to 5 that I hated and processing it with happy hours and and doing men that were bad for me. That's what I was doing for many years. And so it was in denial of that relationship. It was in denial of being a victim of domestic violence. It was in denial of, like, completely living a life that I was absolutely not happy with. So trying to protect myself from ever putting myself in that state ever again is
Mm,
owning it and talking about it and kind of speaking that truth to power. I think especially as, like, a victim and survivor mentality, it's like you do go through so much denial, and, like, you're
mm,
refusing to accept what it is that's happening to you in your circumstances. So when you finally do, there's so much power in that, and then the process, you're re-accepting it
mm,
over and over again for many years. Same thing becoming a comedian. Like, you're re-actualizing it every time you get on stage. You're putting it into
mm,
practice. You're feeling it. You're making it actually happen. um
yeah.
so yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing. And Green Eyed Devil here says, I admire your ability to be vulnerable. I do too.
Thank
Like I,
you.
I, I think it's just such great modeling, and for anybody who's interested, Brene Brown writes so much about shame,
Love
and
her.
everything that you're saying is like, how do you, shame can't live if you bring it out of the shadows. And that's what I hear your journey was, which was like, I'm going to talk about it because it can't have hold on you when it's in the darkness, or when it's out into the light. I mean,
Absolutely. It's
yeah.
like I always say too, and like that's what I love about comedy and about making your comedy a little bit self-deprecating or a little, or not even self-deprecating. Fuck that term. Honest, just honest and self-aware, not self-deprecating. Because it's like whatever
Mm,
joke it is you're going to make about me, I made it about myself already. I know, like what, like that's like a big part of comedy too. You get out there and like you hit them right away with all the things they're already thinking about you. My God,
mm.
she's short. My God, she's loud. My God, is her last name really brave? Yes, yes, yes. Let's get these things out of the way. Let's go, let's go. Like, and it is like that is how you take the power back. You're like, I said it about myself. I know it. Like, I've like had arguments. With some of my best friends, like we have. I'm blessed to have so many really honest, great friendships, and I've had really productive arguments with my best friends where I've been like, you do this, and this, or you reacted like this, and that. And my best friend just looked at me a couple months ago and she goes, "You're absolutely right. I do." And I
Mm.
was like, well, fuck yeah. like you can't take anything from that person who already
Right.
is like, I know it. I'm aware of it. I've processed it. It is a part of me. Like that is like an
Mm,
impeccable shield that somebody has to just know themselves, whether it's beautiful, whether it's ugly. Yeah. And
mm,
that's what I try to, self-awareness, I think, is what I always
mm.
try to like. And like whatever it is you're thinking about me, I probably thought it about myself. And you know what? It is, you're right. I own it. Like I own the good and the bad and the ugly. I try to. I at least try to. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a, that self-awareness, right,
Mm-hmm.
is it's something that if you don't have innately, right, being able to then get to a point where you can say, oh, I need to pay more attention. I need to pay more attention. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the moment that we're in right now, which is we're just asking the world, pay more attention
Yeah.
to who you're being, what you're saying, what you're doing, because it ain't working the
Yeah.
way, right? The way that things are going. And so I love that. And I feel like that's when people talk about the awakening, it's like, now I've got like a book title in my head, The Awakening of Being Brave. I don't know.
There it is. That's
But,
my memoir. How'd you know? I was
I,
writing my memoir, The
of
Awakening of
course.
Being Brave.
Oh my God, I can't wait for that to come out because yeah, your story is so multifaceted, so dynamic. I think so. I don't know. To me, it's just super relatable to be like, yeah, like you know, we sometimes we look at people, especially like celebrities or people that do this amazing brave work, and we think like, well, it just comes natural, or like we don't look at like all the hurt and heartache and all the pain that comes with doing that kind of work
Mm-hmm.
because that's there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, I think, part of empathy in today's world of how do we hold space that regardless of how somebody's showing up in the moment, they're hurting there somewhere.
It's yeah, and it's about like the overall capacity to hold the space, right? Like that's the muscle that we're all trying to build. And it's like what we were talking about earlier. Like it's like when you do something that scares you, you're really flexing like two muscles, right? Like you're learning that new skill or that new experience, be it stand up, be it a new job, be it a new role that you're taking on in your life. But you're also working that general muscle of getting okay with doing things that you're uncomfortable with doing, right? So it's that overall muscle of like paying more attention. Like that's what you have to like. It's the same thing when people say like when you get a college degree, like they're like, well, don't pick a degree or don't study something. I wish someone would have told me this. Like, don't study something based on the job that you're going to get on the
Mm,
tail end of graduation. Study something that's going to give you the skills that you can
yeah,
apply in different ways. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's that's the skill. And like you can't like you can't hold space for only the good in life. Like you have to be able to
Right.
hold space for like the pain, the ups, the downs, the shame, the guilt, like all of it in between. Because at the end of the day, the muscle that you're flexing and the muscle that's growing is the ability to hold that space. and
Mm.
the you know what I mean, and that's what's going to carry you, not that one experience that was great or painful. It's the ability to take it, whether it's great or painful. That's like the other end of it.
I mean, yeah, preach it. I love it. It's absolutely. I think we're in this moment of holding the light in the dark and being able to move through in spite of it, because of it, you know. And I think it's hard for us to hold both of those things
Mm-hmm.
together.
There,
Um,
I just heard. What was I watching? One of my favorite astrologers, Colin Bedell. He's at Queer Cosmos on Instagram, and he's great. He writes all the horoscopes for Cosmo, and he's great. He's incredible. And he was going into like Scorpio season, which it is. And I know some people might be like, "The here we go, this fucking white girl's talking about the zodiac." It was only a matter of time. But whatever, you know, it is what it is. And he was basically talking about how like the Scorpios have the passion to love intently, but also grieve intently,
mm,
and that like you can't love intently without grieving intently. You can't grieve intently without loving intently, and it goes all back to that whole, you know, you can't see the good days without the bad days,
yeah.
but you can't see the bad days without the good days, or else you wouldn't have anything to look forward to, right? So it's like I don't know. Isn't being numb everyone's? That's my greatest
Mm.
fear, is being numb. So you know, I'd rather take an experience that makes me feel something, even if it's terrible, than, you know,
Well,
not
and
think.
that is truly living. And so, speaking of things to look forward to, as we're kind of unfortunately coming to the close of this hour, which is so sad. I just want to keep talking, but what is it that you want to what is it we want to be brave about in 2021 as we turn a corner?
You gave me this question last night, and I still don't know if I have an answer, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do it. Um, what do I want to be brave about in 2021? Continued like self acceptance, I guess,
Mm.
or I really do, I don't, things like that aren't. I want to be brave about continued self acceptance. I want to be brave. I want to take more. You know what I want to do? I want to be brave, and I want to take more like interpersonal risks.
Mm.
I things like that. I'm a little bit eat, pray, love right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like home in Miami through the winter. I'm gonna have a slower schedule down here. Still gonna perform. Still gonna do my thing. But like trying to use the tail end of this already what the fuck just happened year to like, okay, well, when's the next opportunity that I'm going to have to like, I don't know, pick experiences for the fuck of it. Just go do something that scares me, that like maybe there's no return on it. Like pick a creative hobby that I don't care to suck at. Right? Like maybe it's singing, maybe it's painting, maybe it's like playing the ukulele, like all of these different kinds of things. Because I do feel like I admittedly get caught up in a grind sometimes, and I kind of forget. I go a little robotic and forget to live. So yeah, I want to be brave about like challenging myself in interpersonal ways next year.
And honestly, to me, that is the bravest thing you could choose. I mean, of course, you go shoot for the moon on that one, because honestly, I think that is the hardest work of our lives. When I talk about like the work of our lives is the inner work. It's the work on ourselves. So that's fucking beautiful. I love that. I'm so glad that that's like what we get to leave this audience with. But before we go, please let people know where to find you.
I'm
Um,
all over the internet, baby. Okay. I'm at Brittany Brave on Instagram, Brit Brave on Twitter. I'm on everything. If you need me to tell you a joke on Yelp, I'll do it. Like just let me know what your media. I'm
Wow, MySpace? Wow, what is it, 19 like 99? Like what? Holy cow. That's
Someone just told me
impressive.
the other day they have a MySpace profile, and I was like, you need to talk to someone about that. You need a brand manager.
You need to
I was
call a
like,
marketer, right?
you need to
Call
call
me,
a
I'll help you out
marketer.
with that. No.
I don't know about that.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. And also, for those of you who want to hear a little bit more about Brittany in her own words, you can go to my blog. It's Spotlight Series. She answered a few questions of mine, and you can visit there. But yeah, and hire Brittany for all your entertainment needs. Well, not all of them. I think there's some that you
No,
maybe.
all of them, all of them. It's a rough economy. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do. Do you know what I mean? Like, now, okay,
Oh
like
boy.
whatever you can. No, I'm kidding. But also, what's your budget? Like, let me know.
I
That's
love
it.
it. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for this. I wanted to inspire. I knew it. I knew this was going to be amazing. Thank you for your honesty, your realness, your depth of wisdom on this topic of being brave. You certainly live it. And I look forward to seeing all that's to come for you in your beautiful career. So thank you so
Yay!
much.
I love you, Tosca. You're the best.
I
Mwah.
love you too. Mwah. I'll talk to you soon, my friend. And thanks for everyone who joined and for everyone who's watching after the fact. Look forward to hearing from you.
Bye, guys.
Ciao for now.